1. Well, hello and welcome back. We're continuing our series of episodes looking at Python certification. This episode, we're going to look at dictionaries. We've not really, I don't think we've touched on these yet if you're doing this in order. So we're going to get sort of step back and go to very basic stuff, talking about dictionaries. Very similar to, well, in some ways similar to lists, but there's also some differences. Now we're going to work with this one. I've got a sample dictionary, and this is how you create one, essentially a fully populated dictionary. You're going to have a key and you're going to have a value, and then you use comma to separate. Here's another key, another value, another key, number of values. Now, let's start with the most basic. And let me go just so when you have that dictionary and print it out, then you'll see that it prints it out almost identical to what it looks like in the code. So there's our keys and our values. Now another thing we can do is we can actually print out the keys and print out the values. So if we do that, we see here's the diction. And when we do, notice when we do keys, it actually says dictionary keys. It's going to print that out. So you have home, office, and bill. Those are the three keys that I created. And then if you do dictionary values, it does the same things. It tells you that's the values, and here are the ones that are within that. So that's the usefulness basically of a dictionary. Is it's just a bunch of key value pairs, and there's plenty of opportunities for us to use that in just about any solution we run into. Now, if you want to work with specific items, there's actually two ways to do it. You can, let's do this. Let's do that. And so the two ways we can do it, we can either look at it by key and treat it almost like an array where the key is the index, or we can do a get. Now, one of the things we're going to find out is, let's say, we'll follow that, and let's say if we do something that does not exist, let's call it red, and then see what happens in those cases. So in these two cases, first two cases, we should get home, which is 123 Main Street. Let's see what happens when we try to do red. Access that. So here we go. So we got 123 Main Street. We get 123 Main Street. However, when we do, it blows up right here. When we try to do sample red, then it gives us an error. So we can't do it if it doesn't exist, because it's going to give an error, which is, it's a key error. Now let's just keep the same thing and do a get. Let's see what it does here. Notice here, when we do the get, we don't get an error. In that case, it figures out that, hey, that doesn't exist, so I'm going to send you a none. I'm not going to actually throw an error. I'm going to allow you to do it, but I'm going to set none back. That basically says I can't find a value for that. So generally speaking, we're going to want to use get over this other construct, basically, to retrieve items. Now we can do some things. So we could do like for, let's do value in sample.values. Or actually, let's do this. Let's do for key and sample.keys. And then we can do print, let's see, key plus address is, and then we can do plus sample.get key. Gotta close that. So we can do some of our some things we've seen before to work within these. So we can see home address is this, and so this is our key. We do some stuff, and that's our value. That's often how you're going to walk through a dictionary. Is probably going to do like for value, and you're either going to go through the values or through the keys. But of course, if you do the keys, then you can very easily do a get to get a specific value. Now, another thing you can do is, let's just print sample. You can use those keys to change them so they are not immutable. So if I do sample, home, and then let's make it, let's just do it 4, 3, 2, 1. Whoops. Some range. We'll just have some little random thing, and then we'll see that. So now, with this one, which is really where we do need to use this this construct to address stuff, is we can actually reassign it. So now, if we look, we can see here. So we come through, we do our little loop, and then here we changed out our value and assigned it to something new. So we can use that to change things out. Now we can also do, let's do this. Let's make this, let's do vacation. This will be, Sunshine Avenue. Sounds like a nice little. So now note we don't have that, but we can come in and take sample and extend it. So here we add a vacation, and it's just going to give us, it just appends by default, because key order doesn't really matter, but it's going to append that new key in. So we could add actually multiple things. We could create a dictionary, like, let's do this. From blank, and we're just going to call blank equals an empty dictionary, and then we can do blank, let's just do it this way. Well, A equals, let's do this, apple, and then print blank. And we're going to do it again, and we'll see that we can actually build something out from scratch, like this. Banana. Okay. And then we'll see, so then it goes apple. Let's see, it adds that in, and it comes back in, and it adds banana. Another thing we can do is, this will seem familiar if you've gone through the lists, is that we can do a pop. So we can do, let's do it off of sample. So we're going to do sample, and we're going to do it much like we did before. Let's see. So if you do a dictionary pop, there's two of them in this case, so it's a little different. Normally, you can either do you're going to do it by key. So if you do a pop, it's normally going to need a key value. So I can specifically pull off, let me go back to vacation. And let's see what comes out, and then see what sample looks like afterwards. So if we do that, then, here we go. So when we do the pop, it returns a value we pop, much like we saw in a list. And then also we can see now that it pulled it out of the dictionary, much like just the same way it did a list. It actually pulled that thing out of it. Now, if we do a pop item, we'll just continue with that. Then it's going to just pick something. So let's see what happens. We're going to do a pop item twice. And let's see what it grabs. So when we do it the first time, it pulls financial way, which happens to be the last item. And then it pulls it out. And then the second time we do a pop, it's going to pull the last item again. And it gives us just this one left. So much like, although it may be a little tricky where the keys are, you don't necessarily know what the order is. unless you sort of know the value with which you've added the order with which you've added stuff into the dictionary. But it's going to effectively work like a pop in a list, where it's going to say whatever's the last thing that came in, that's the first one I'm going to pull out. So that's how you can do a pop, either a specific key, or you can do a pop item, as we saw here. Let's see. So we also did, one we did not look at is items. So let me go back to that. I forgot to throw that one in there. Because we looked at keys and we looked at values, and now let's look at items, which is another way. So we could easily do that somewhere up here. So we could do like item in sample.item. So let's go see what items gives us, because that's another one we want to make sure we know. And as we can see here, oops, let me do this beforehand. So let's move these pops afterwards. So now you can see items is when it sends it out, it's going to show you, it gives you the list. So this is a comma separated list of the items, much like you would see, like you see with the, and it says here it's items. So you see each of those comma separated values within the display. Now it's items. It's a key value pair. So that also means that if I were to take that, and just to make it a little more blatant, if I take this loop and I do item in sample.items, I'm just going to do let's do next pair is, and then it's just going to do the item. Let's get rid of that. And whoops. I cannot so I have to convert that to a string, which I think I can do by this. Let's see if I can do that with a tuple. Can I? I can. Okay. So I convert the tuple to a string, and here we go. Next pair. So what we had here is we had lonesome range, office, and billing, and you see that it pulls that whole pair out for each tuple, and then we can do something with it. And so let's say if we wanted to try to just take the first item, let's just see what it does there, because that's actually a good one to note. And so now if I just try to treat it like an array and take the zero-based item, then so it should go next pair is, and you'll see here where I don't actually have to, there's behind the scenes, there is an order to it to some extent. So I can just take, in this case, the first item. So I'm taking the first key. Here, item 0 is going to be the key for this item. If I try to do item 1, then I'm saying I don't care what it is in this tuple. So it's just 0 and 1, 0 and 1, and so it's going to take those. And of course, if I try to push it, then it's going to give me issues because here we go. Where'd it go? Yeah, tuple index out of range. So there's only 2 in there. So I could work with it that way. If I don't really know the key or the value, then I could just treat them as item 0 and item 1 and go from there. But typically you're going to send that out as some sort of a tuple and work with it that way. So items gives you, keys gives you the keys, the left side of the equation. Values gives you the right side of the equation. And then items gives you both. It gives you each tuple, the 2 items that you see in the dictionary. So yes, basically between each comma. So that's my tuple, key value. Here I have office in 22 Baker Street, office the key, 22 Baker Street's value. So on. So I have keys, values, and then I can do items if I want to look at them that way. Let's see. Another thing we can do that we have seen before is we can do a clear. Let's do it this way. Let's go ahead and clear it and then print it. So if we do a clear and we get to the end, then we can see, there you go, that we now have an empty dictionary again. We've gone back to it. So there's a lot of things that are, I guess one more I want to do is I can do if, let's do the clear after. And actually, let's get rid of that. Let's move that if up. And so let's do it this way. I'll go ahead and do all that. And I'm going to go rebuild this thing. So we come back and I'm going to reset sample. Oh, I can do, before I do that, all the way up in here, I can do sample2 equals sample dot. I can do a copy. We've seen that one before. So now after I clear sample, I can do print sample2. And then I can do if, let's see, let's do sample2. Let me go back to that. Let's see, home. And we're just going to take print that key exists. And so we can see through here that we cleared it out, but now we have sample2. It's just from that copy. And we can say that key exists. If we do if sample2 blue, else that key does not exist. And we can see here that again, we're going to get it because it's checking there. We can't do an exists on that. So instead, we'd have to do sample2.get. And because it's going to give us an empty, then we can see that that key does not exist. Three, two, one. One more, actually a couple more. Let's do, since we've seen it not sample, but we're going to do it on sample2. You can also do a length, which we have seen before. And so if we jump out to that, it says it does not have attribute of length. Oh, sorry, it's probably this. That's where I got to do it. I forgot. So if I do it that way, then we're going to see that it gives us the number of items within there. And let's see. I think that probably those are the things we're going to see in the most likely see in certification as we're going through that test. There are a lot of similarities, and they should make a lot of sense once you're playing around with lists and dictionaries as far as how it handles items and sizes and updates and displays and things like that. Probably a key one to remember with a dictionary is although you can somewhat treat it, as we've seen, even the tuples, the items, you can treat them as an array. It is safest to use your gets so that you can make sure that stuff doesn't blow up, and then that's going to actually give you something that's a little more, we'll say, coding friendly. That being said, I think it's a good time to wrap this one up. We will continue. We're just going to keep chugging away at this thing. There will be some additional examples and such in the notes, in the show notes. There's some links to some a couple other places where you can see how these things are used. And as always, we will have stuff out in the GitHub repository so you can see this code and check it out and play around with it as at your leisure. But as always, go out there, have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time.